Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be reading a few chapters of Cara the Class Clown by Lydia di Giulio, Bridget di Giulio. I hope you enjoy it. Chapter 9, A Hairy Encounter. Every night, Mr. and Mrs. Cockroach went scavenging around their apartment in search of food. But they never took Cara with them because they didn't think that it was safe to bring her along. They felt that she was just too young and nowhere near possible enough to assist them in their scavenge for food. Nevertheless, every night, Cara went through the same routine of trying to convince her parents to allow her to come along. Tonight, she decided, was no exception as she waited in her bedroom for her parents to come. It wasn't long before Cara's parents scuttled into her room. "We're going scavenging now. We'll try not to be too long. You'll be safe here, Cara, but you must not leave this room under any circumstances," said her father sternly. "But Dad, can't I join you? Please, please, please. I promise that I'll be careful. It's so boring staying here all by myself. Please, let me come with you," she begged. "No way, Cara," replied Mr. Cockroach. "It's just not safe for you to join us. You're still too little. And besides, you haven't even learnt any food scavenging techniques at school yet." But Cara continued to nag her father and said, "Oh, but Dad, I promised to." "No, Cara," snapped Mr. Cockroach, quickly interrupted her. "I do not want to hear any word about it. Do you understand?" But since Cara failed to respond, he added in an even sterner voice, "Now go to sleep and good night." Before he scuttled away, Cara was annoyed because she had really wanted to go scavenging with them. But just at that moment, Cara suddenly thought of a plan. Climbing out of bed and wearing a broad grin on her face, she headed upstairs. Cara had never been upstairs before, and she scuttled around excitedly in search of food. She searched through all 3 bedrooms and both bathrooms, but could not find even a crumb to eat. Cara was very disappointed, but soon cheered up when she heard loud noises coming from the rumpus room. It was the only room that she had forgotten to check for food. "Maybe I'll find some delicious food scraps lying around in there," she thought to herself. Cara cautiously scuttled into the room and saw Jack and Sally watching television in their pyjamas. Cara searched the room but was disappointed once again. But she had failed to find some food for herself. She decided to hide herself underneath the couch and watch television with Jack and Sally instead. Cara enjoyed watching the big and very colourful black box that hung on the wall, and her eyes grew wide with wonder when she saw the pictures of food that were being shown in the television commercials. They made her tummy rumble. Cara was so distracted by the television that she failed to notice that her hiding spot was also being shared by someone else. All of a sudden, she felt something very warm and furry touching her back. Quickly turning around, Cara found herself staring eye to eye with a giant and very hairy huntsman spider. She screamed in fright as the spider grabbed her tightly around the waist. Cara panicked, turning as white as a ghost. She struggled to break free from its firm grip, but the spider would not let her go. In desperation, Cara managed to bite one of the spider's legs, causing it to immediately release her. Before the hungry spider had a chance to eat Cara for supper. Trembling, Cara scuttled away as quickly as she could. Climbing back down the steep staircase, Cara headed towards the kitchen, which was her favourite room in the apartment. The Bronsons always left behind plenty of food scraps after their meals, especially Jack and Sally, who were very messy eaters. Cara turned around to check if the spider had followed her. Fortunately, it was nowhere to be seen. Cara breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 10. Mrs. Bronson meets the family. Cara's heart suddenly pounded in fright when she heard a strange sound close by. Cara panicked and, failing to look where she was going, ended up bumping into her parents, who were busy gathering food for their supper. "Cara!" exclaimed her father in surprise. "What are you doing here? Didn't we tell you to stay in your room?" "Yes, Dad, but I don't really like being left on my own all the time. I'd much rather be here with you two," she said. "And I was so hungry that I had to try and find myself a snack. I just couldn't wait for you to return." "I'm so sorry, Dad." "Oh, all right then, Cara. I guess you may as well stay with us now that you're here," said Mr. Cockroach, feeling sorry for her. "Come on then. There's plenty of food underneath the table. Just over there," she indicated, using an antenna to point with. Thanks, Dad," exclaimed Cara excitedly. But just as she had scuttled across the floor towards the dining room table, the kitchen suddenly became very bright as Mrs. Bronson entered the room and turned on the light. She screamed in fright when she saw Cara scuttling around underneath the table, not far from her. "Run, Cara, run! Quickly go to your bedroom now!" ordered Mr. Cockroach, who was afraid for his daughter's safety. Cara and her parents all ran in different directions, making it more difficult for Mrs. Bronson to catch them. Not knowing which cockroach to chase first, she panicked, screaming to her husband as loud as she could, "Help! Cockroaches!" In a matter of seconds, Mr. Bronson came running into the kitchen, holding a fly swatter firmly in his hand. He frantically swatted at the cockroaches, but kept missing them, because they were just too fast for him. Cara and her parents scuttled away, out of sight. Cara was first to return home safely. She went straight to her bedroom and jumped into bed, trembling. Her parents returned not long after. They all breathed a sigh of relief and stared at each other in silence while they recovered from their frightening ordeal. After a short while, Mr. Cockroach managed to speak, although still shaking a little himself, and said, "That was a lucky escape. Now can you at least understand why it's not safe for you to go scavenging with us, Cara?" "Oh, Dad, it wasn't that bad. Actually, it was quite fun, don't you think?" replied Cara, grinning. "And besides, they'll never catch me. I'm way too fast for them. Oh, and clever too," she added. Mr. and Mrs. Cockroach stared at each other in disbelief, and shaking his head, Mr. Cockroach said to his wife, "She'll never learn." Cara merely smiled at her parents and yawned before dozing off to sleep. Chapter 11. The Scavenging Excursion. Cara woke up very excited the next morning and couldn't wait to get to school on this particular day. Another of Cara's teachers, Mr. Constance, was taking the class on a scavenging excursion. "Does anyone know where we're going?" Clem asked the other little cockroaches. "Probably to Clarabelle's house," said Cara, giggling. "You should see it. It's like a rubbish dump over there." All of the little cockroaches laughed except for Clarabelle. "Well, at least I have friends to play with, unlike you," she sneered, glaring at Cara. "Oh, Clarabelle, you're absolutely right. I really wish that I had a friend just like you. Will you be my friend? Pretty please?" said Cara as she rubbed her eyes and pretended to cry. "All right, girls, that's quite enough," yelled Mrs. Constance as she glared at them. "Now, little cockroaches," she continued, "this time addressing the class, today we're going to learn some important food scavenging techniques. Now, when we leave the school grounds, I would like you all of you to stay together in one group. No one is to permit it to go scavenging on their own. Is that understood?" "Yes, Mrs. Constance," replied everyone except for Cara, who had suddenly become unusually quiet. "Well, let's go then," exclaimed Mrs. Constance enthusiastically as she began to lead the group out of the schoolyard. With a gleam in her eye, Cara casually slowed down and made her way towards the back of the group. As they walked past some dog food that was left in a bowl, Mrs. Constance said, "Now remember, class, never eat leftover food like this, or you would end up being coated in saliva, or worse still, stuck between the dog's teeth." "Ew!" the little cockroaches replied in disgust. "That would be awful," said Clem, shuddering at the thought of being eaten by a dog. "Oh, come on, everyone. It wouldn't be that bad, especially if it happened to Clarabelle," remarked Cara, grinning. An expression of shock and disbelief suddenly appeared on Clarabelle's face as she turned around to stare at Cara. Clarabelle, who was almost in tears, quickly scuttled over to the teacher and, tapping her on the shoulder, said, "Mrs. Constance, did you hear what Cara just said about me?" "Oh, yes, I certainly did," replied Mrs. Constance furiously, and turned to face Cara. She said, "How dare you say such a dreadful thing to Clarabelle? I am disgusted with your behaviour. I would like you to apologise to Clarabelle at once." "But I was only joking," retorted Cara. "It's not my fault if Clarabelle can't take a joke." "Cara, apologise," ordered Mrs. Constance. "Oh, all right then. I'm sorry," mumbled Cara. And I do not want to hear another nasty word come out of your mouth for the rest of the day, Cara," added Mrs. Constance angrily. Cara glared at Clarabelle but said nothing. Clarabelle smiled smugly at Cara and continued to walk closely behind the teacher, for safety. Everyone except for Cara hurried along after Mrs. Constance, listening carefully to her explanations and instructions. Cara, on the other hand, wasn't the slightest bit interested in anything her teacher had to say. In fact, all Cara really wanted to do was to wander off and do some of her own scavenging.